Okay, hello everyone. Welcome back to Concordia University's Forest Space. Thanks for joining us for the next episode in the ongoing series, Insight to and Sustainability Across Disciplines. Now, this is a Faculty of Fine Arts and a Faculty of Arts and Science collaboration, and the episode that's happening right now, and probably also the winner for the Best Acronym Award, is CRUST, Ceramics Reimagined Using Sustainable Techniques. Now, just to help situate you, if you've been following along, you'll know that we're streaming to YouTube live from Forest Space. We're located here on unceded Indigenous lands in Tiohtià:ke, Montreal. We're also running the event as a live stream Zoom meeting. And those of you joining us there, well, we welcome any comments or questions via the chat. And those of you here in the space, if we have some time for Q&A at the end, just raise your hand. We'll bring a microphone over to you. Okay, that's enough for me. It's now my pleasure to hand it over to Professor in Ceramic Studio Arts, Linda Swanson. Linda, hello.
Hi, everyone. It's really nice to be joining you today, even virtually. I wanted to thank PK Langshaw so much for the invitation to make this proposal for the symposium, and to all of the organizers of the Insight to week-long of events. We're really looking forward to the panel today and also to many of the other events that are planned. Also wanted to thank the very committed staff of Force Space for helping us bring us together and connect within the university and beyond. So it's truly a pleasure to meet and share ideas across disciplines and departments and on the critical role of sustainability. My name is Linda Swanson, as Doug mentioned, and I teach ceramics in the Studio Arts program here at Concordia. I'm accompanied by 3 students from the MFA program in Sculpture and Ceramics. They are Teresa Dorey, Daniel Gillberg, and Loriane Thibodeau. They have all been deeply engaged in sustainability efforts in their own practices and in the Studio Arts community. Our presentation is entitled CRUST, which stands for Ceramics Reimagined Using Sustainable Techniques. We each have a presentation for you, followed by a question and comment period, and we really invite you to join with us in dialogue at that point. Hopefully we have a video that's queued up and ready to play, and we could start that while I'm starting the presentation. Sustainability is about time. It's about lasting through time. Ceramics is about 30,000 years old. At least that's the oldest ceramic fired object that we know about so far. This object was not a pot, nor something explicitly functional in a survival sense. It was a figurine, a female Venus figure, the Venus of Dolní Věstonicí, found in the Czech Republic. When humans found a material that could last, we decided to represent ourselves and our desire to endure, and that of the things that we make are at the heart of sustainability and our impulses around making. The long tradition of ceramics, lasting tens of thousands of years, should hold some keys to sustainability. There are places in the world that have had continuous ceramic traditions for centuries. Except for the speed derived from a bit of electricity, we now form clay the same way as we always have. Even 3D printed clay techniques are based on coiling, a hand-building technique of slow layering, which is the same way the oldest pots were made. It is true that technology around firing changed during the Industrial Revolution with the creation of kilns fired by fossil fuels. But it is the materials that we make ceramics out of that has changed dramatically and drastically in the last 50 years. Even early ceramics industries were located near clay deposits, which just made sense. Clay is heavy to transport. This year, Alfred University's ceramic program turns 125 years old. It was founded in Western New York and is the largest program in North America to bolster a local architectural terracotta production made out of an abundant supply of Alfred shale clay. A formerly local endeavor, ceramics today has a global footprint with a proportional environmental impact. If I buy clay from the local supplier near Montreal, it may contain white kaolin from New Zealand or England or other materials that are mined in one part of the world, processed in another, and distributed through a third or fourth country. The British kaolin we use in our studios at Concordia comes from a mine with only an estimated 50 years of clay remaining, not only due to its use in ceramics, but also in other industries like papermaking, textiles, and food. Unlike the kaolin mines, though, knowledge of other material sources and the distances they have been transported are difficult to assess. This difficulty, accompanied by supply chain disruptions during the pandemic, the depletion and subsequent disappearance of several material sources that had been primary ingredients in many glaze and clay recipes, has led to a resurgence of interest in strategies that center the local recycling and the use of renewable resources, which this panel will be sharing with you today. Prior to firing, clay is an infinitely reformable material, and this malleability can be perceived as both physical and conceptual. Clay is literally the earth, and working with it offers a connection to the natural world. We have a profound relationship with clay. It's a material that has always been a part of our world. Our mythical origins speak of our being formed of clay. Scientists have shown that specific energetic properties found in clay minerals are key to the formation of RNA, one of the building blocks of life. It is the only natural material that accepts the shape we give it by hand. How we engage it enables us to reflect on our existence in a distinctly human way. I'd like to switch over to the slides and share my screen with you. I'm interested in allowing the nature of material to inform my work in ceramics. Material is more than just what something is made of, but the specific conditions and qualities in which the ideas of a work take form. We usually experience ceramics in a finished and permanent state. I am interested in exploring the temporal and transformative nature of ceramic materials, which we usually don't get to see. The focus of my work, adjust this slightly, take that out of the way. The focus of my work is on giving presence and duration to these material processes. How does the slowness of the change of a material become tangible and meaningful? In a reversal of the typical order in ceramic processes, I began looking at how ceramic materials could be changed by adding water into them instead of removing it. It is the elimination of water in the kiln that renders ceramics permanent. And usually ceramics is a process of removing water, drying clay until its final removal in the kiln. By using water instead of fire as a transformative agent, the metamorphic nature of ceramics could be experienced as the changes occur. I want to slow down and extend our experience of these changes as they move through stages of evaporation, dissolution, precipitation, and expansion. Tensions in how the process unfolds between fast and slow, near and far, up and down, inside and outside, light and shadow, sound and silence, create an allure that entices the viewers to respond to the materials empathetically. I tend to use regular, almost objective geometry for the installation framework, in contrast to the irregular, more natural geometry of the expanding, shrinking, solidifying, and dissolving materials. This disjunction forces us to pause and reconcile our perceptions and understandings of these natural processes in a wholly artificial situation. These works establish relationships between movement and matter as water seeps, drips, flows, and pools to negotiate porous fabric membranes and impermeable vessels of glass and metal, to speak more about change and its meaning through ceramic processes than the forms themselves. The temporality of these processes is important in terms of the qualities of light and movement that animate the space of the installations, as its temporality of perception and the experience of the body and attunement to our own corporeality. How can the inherent qualities in a material be brought forward as an experiential encounter? Ceramics as a material process takes time, and working with ceramic materials requires a rethinking of today's values of the quick and easy. While seemingly to gratify immediately in its responsiveness, clay itself resists speed. This medium requires a long-term building of knowledge and flexibility to deal with the unpredictability of its processes. Ultimately, it is the temporal nature of these materials and their processes that is at issue in my work and in the sustainability efforts currently underway in ceramics. To continue the presentation today, I'd like to introduce Loriane Thibodeau, current student in the MFA in Ceramics and Sculpture program, like I mentioned previously, and currently teaching at the Centre Céramique Bon Secours in Montreal to present ideas around the recuperation of ceramic waste and recycling.
Hello. Yeah, thank you, Linda. I'm happy to be with you today. Happy to see some Potter's friends, colleagues, and also some previous students. It's great. So yes, does sustainability start with what already exists? I have the feeling that many of you here will agree with and relate probably with what I will say next. For me, sustainability is not a subject, it's not a topic, it's definitely more an ethic, it's an attitude, it's a curiosity too. Sustainability is also a culture, and a culture that we can grow together. Following global trends and also what's happening here in Quebec, sustainability has quickly become a commitment, and a commitment to do better. And any commitment is intertwined, with actions. And today I will share some part of my methodology to integrate sustainable minerals in my own practice. So I'm especially interested in popular culture and everyday objects. So in the exhibition space behind, you saw, or you will see after the presentation, for example, some sculptures referring to everyday life. Part of my community practice involves collecting waste from my colleagues' studios or from the various schools where I teach. First, I enjoy reclaiming and upcycling these materials, preventing them from being considered as waste. Second, I'm curious about how they will turn out through the firing process, the various firing processes possible. And third, I feel the need to push the boundaries of my own knowledge regarding minerals. So here, I am with Esther Legault. She's a ceramicist, a potter, and she's also the daughter of Pierre Legault, who's an important actor of the democratization of mineral accessibility here in Quebec province around the 60s. With fellow potters, he is at the origin of Cial Canada, for those of you who know. Cial is our main national supplier, in fact. And Pierre Legault trained dozens of students to observe, to consider, to develop their knowledge about minerals in their own areas. Many of them were going to his school in Port-au-Percy. So this is the image that you can see on the left. Me and Esther, we are at Port-au-Percy. And so people were coming, taking workshops, and then they were going back to their area, mostly in Quebec province. And as they were coming from minerals, from their place, like their surroundings, there was this amazing sharing of different minerals coming from different areas, and then people were going back with even more knowledge of their surroundings. For me, the found minerals, clays, yes, as well as minerals used for making glazes, also come from the schools where I teach, or from my fellow potters studios. I'm always excited to see what has been set aside for me as a potential beautiful gift, like hidden gems. Very often, neither they or I know how it will turn out. And many of you here may know why, but it's basically because we work with fires. So transforming the materials through firing means that, for example, the image that you can see on the left is, so it represents different glazes made with local minerals, except for silica. And so you can see them raw, and then on the right, you can see them fired. For these experimentations, as we were working with local minerals from Quebec province, the tones are quite similar, but sometimes the colors are very different from raw to fired. And what is clay? I don't know if everybody here touched clay before. Can you raise your hand if you ever worked with clay? Yeah, that's what I thought, many of you. Okay, so for the others, clays are made basically from the finest particles of the planet Earth. And as Linda mentioned earlier, ceramic has a very, very long history. And because of its materiality, through ceramic pieces or shards, still today we have the chance to access various information from previous centuries and millennia. It's amazing, right? But it also means that, in fact, it proves that fired clays stay for a very long time. It means that there's a certain responsibility coming with it. Here is one of my favorite tools. On the left, you can see an icebreaker, I think we call it in English, un brise-glace. And so it's one of my favorite tools to harvest clay. And here you can see kind of a counterexample, because very often we consider that we find clay on the shore of a river or a lake, or even in the middle of a field. But you can also find it maybe at the corner of your neighborhood. So here it's the corner of my street, Rue Joliette in Hochelaga. There was this construction site, and I was passing by, and I dared to ask them if I can collect some clay. Of course, because it requires that it's not a secure place, especially when it's full of clay, so machinery and all. So they don't wanted me to go in, but they filled the buckets that you can see on the right. So it's another way of sharing through the material, in my opinion. They didn't know what I was going to do with it. They didn't really get it, but that's okay. They were super willing to help me. And here you can see a project made with local clay in Gaspésie. On the right image, you can see how the tides were starting to erode the clay sculpture, the raw clay, so it's not fired. Through observation and through millennia, we have been able to observe that nature, like local clay, already have some aggregates into it. and it makes it stronger. So I am not reinventing the wheel by putting grog into my own clay, but I'm doing it with what is around me, which is mostly coming from my urban surroundings. We add these like grog and other aggregates because clay is very, very plastic, even sometimes too plastic, too sticky. So it's, it helps the work itself. And this is one of the things when you travel, you see that in other countries, the industrial clays are made sometimes with way more diverse aggregate, and it gives a lot of personality to clay. So I mentioned the term grog. So grog is something that we can buy directly at the supplier, and it's made from refractory materials, and in the clay body, it creates a refractory network. It gives also strength. It's kind of the difference with cement and concrete. So when you add to it, it's way stronger after. So basically, we could pretend or think that because construction waste as bricks are one of the most common waste, we could tell ourselves that it's easy to have access to it, but it's not that easy. So there are definitely connections that we could help. But here we have a great example of, in France, Limoges is a well-known city with a very long ceramic history, and they made this connection stronger. So here, on the left, you have some of the ceramics they are still making today. And on the right, you have a good example of how they reused, they kind of recycled clay and turn it into aggregates for the road base. So this is an example of an industrial design thinking through ceramic, like how to reuse ceramics. But more and more ceramicists, even here in Quebec, are doing some pilot recycling programs in their own company. So I'm thinking, for example, of Cindy Labrec in Quebec City. She got a CALC, so Conseil des Arts et Lettres du Québec grant for using more local minerals around her studio and also to reclaim her own ceramics. So by asking people, offering to people to bring them back in the studio, and then she reclaims in her next collection. And by the way, I like the word upcycling because it's also known as creative reuse. I think we can definitely be very creative with how we want to upcycle our materials, and especially minerals, of course. So what can we reclaim? What can we put in our clay bodies or into our glazes? Various rocks, shards from previous projects or tests. We can also use glass, sands, and it's up to you to make your own test with what else is around you, but basically many minerals and also even some organic materials. I think with Teresa, we are going to talk about the organic aspects connected to ceramics, so you will know a little bit more later. And here's some images of how we technically do it. So a hammer is a very good tool for making grog. There are also some electric tools, but on the right, a cornmeal here is a very good tool, very good example of tool that you can also bring with you in different places or studios. And then, of course, it's a lot of time and passion, but it's a great way to crush minerals. Here we have an example of a, a mineral rock crusher. So it's based on the reciprocating movement of the movable jaws that compresses and crushes the rock, or like between itself. Yeah, so there's a fixed jaw and there's another one, and then you can determine the size of the material at the end. And here are some examples of, like, at the end of the process. So as many other upcycling processes, there are differences when using materials coming from the industrial sector and making them yourself. First, knowing the provenance of minerals in the industry is a very challenging thing. It's really hard because we as ceramicists, we represent like such a tiny part of the whole industry. So basically, it's hard to know where minerals are from. And I would like to point out that it's not only about the mineral composition. Basically, we have way more information about that than the conditions, environmental ones, but also human ones, like in which type of conditions these minerals have been extracted. And this is more and more something that we, like some information we can get from it, and a better understanding of the consequences of our choices here. As we know, Canada is one of the main country, having mines in different countries. So it's all about the sustainability and the ethic that I was talking about at the beginning, from my point of view. Another point, like compared to industrials, so if I use industrial grog instead of making my own, so it's increasing my autonomy. We remember during the pandemic how it was hard to have access to certain minerals or materials, so it's great to have more autonomy. It's more labor involved, there is more labor involved, but it also gives a lot of personality to projects. And from my point of view, when you travel also, you can see different clays and different ceramics, and it's really part of the DNA of a culture. And this is the last slide. So due to empirical knowledge accumulated over millennia and the unpredictable aspects of making through fire, ceramicists are especially inclined to share knowledge, from my point of view. And the Frère Julien Cloutier, well-known potter, teacher from the 60s too, who trained hundreds of ceramicists, among others my own teachers, when I started ceramics in 2004. And in his book, Matériaux du céramiste québécois, so materials or minerals from for the Quebec potter, Julien Cloutier writes that the residues from gravel production of Quebec's roads yield some of the finest Temuco glaze he ever seen. This is something that I dream of, to have access to simple materials like that, to make my own Temuco glazes, for example. In conclusion, for me, using minerals sourced directly from Earth or from other studios is a way to honor past while also projecting into our own future. I also study the sociological aspects of communities formed around wood-fired clays. And there is a tablet iPad over there representing this wood-firing technique. And I will pass on to my colleague Daniel. He will explain about our wood kiln that we made together. Thank you.
Yes. Hello, everyone. Thank you all for being here. Can you all hear me now? Yes, good. Yes, as Loriane said, I will redirect the focus a little bit on the firing process. Let's see if I can get my slide up and running. No? Nothing?
Sorry, we're having a technical issue.
let's see.
Well, if someone has a very short question, maybe I have a question.
Yes.
How far down do you have to dig for the clay? Because there are different layers, eh? In the earth?
Yes, yes, you're right, Susan. Oh, the slides are coming back. But basically, there are many options. You have to test, but we can talk about it later on.
Yes, let's see. How are we doing now? So I would like to talk a little bit about the firing process. As both my colleagues have mentioned before, this is where big parts of the magic happens in terms of ceramics. This is where the clay is being transformed into ceramics and being permanented. And this is done through high temperatures where chemical reactions such as quartz conversion and also the evaporation of chemically bound water in the material is happening. And these temperatures, of course, require quite a lot of electricity or resources, particularly when firing in an electric kiln. Here's a little selection of medium-sized electric kilns. They're top-loaded. It's like a little barrel, and inside you have all the spirals that are elements that heats the ceramics. And this is probably, I would say, the most common way of firing your ceramics these days. Like you see these kilns both here at Concordia, but also in other studios around the town. And our question was how, in terms of sustainability, what alternatives are there? Like, are there other alternative methods to firing that can be utilized? We decided to go for project. Let's see. And also the second question we had was, what do we do with all these kilns when they have done their time? Like, do we just throw them out? Because some of the parts you cannot maybe reuse or incorporate in new kilns because they are so worn out. And we started looking into an old way of directing heat. Utilizing fire, open fire to generate heat or to heat air. Different systems for this have been around for a very, very, very long time. Not just sitting around the open fire, but there's also sophisticated technologies in the past, such as this hypocaust, which is the Roman heating systems for their villas and their housings, where they would light a fire at one end of the building, and then they would have the outlet for the smoke and the heat in a different corner of the house. So the heat would kind of serpentine its way between these pillars and evenly heat out the space. Another way or another technique that's adopted, kind of a sort of a similar way of utilizing this energy, is the rocket stove for cooking that some of you might know. It's used many places around the world today, and it's a way of being able to cook over open firing, but indoors, and it creates a very clean firing. So it takes away the soot and all the smoke. And it does so by separating the outflow and where the logs are. You can see the distance that the airflow is coming under the wood. And so basically you have this hyperheated air that rises through the combustion chamber and heats up your food. And with this system, you can actually boil your water within under 3 minutes. And during the 80s, there was some research happening in the US on how it could be possible to translate this technique in order to fire ceramics. And as you see, they are pretty similar, the structure of this and the structure of this. Basically, you could say that they exchanged the casserole for this other barrel that is actually a defunct electric kiln. So by building this J-formed sort of heating tube or fire tube from fire breaks or bricks, the heat from the fire, the same principle with the airflow coming from underneath the fire, is rising through this kind of chimney-like structure, and there's a hole in the bottom of the electric kiln, and then you have the outlet on the other side of the kiln, so that the heat is forced to circulate within this barrel. This particular kiln is from an open source document posted by Lisa Orr, who is a member of the Green Task Force in NCECA, which is the National Council of Educational Ceramic Arts. Am I right? Yeah. Yes. And so it's a way of kind of combining these historic or previous knowledges, but also while utilizing other materials and to recycle and upcycle maybe perhaps these old kilns and bricks. And similar to the previous techniques that I showed, this gives us a very fast firing. It gives us a clean combustion, so it's a smoke-free firing, particle-free, and it's very, very fuel efficient. In terms of time of the firing, an electric kiln would take approximately maybe like 9 to 12 hours to reach temperatures such as 1200 Celsius, which will be maybe approximately 2100 or 2200 Fahrenheit. But this system, the rocket kiln, can achieve this within 4 to 5 hours. And in terms of the fuel, as Loriane had mentioned, irregular wood firings are also common. These kilns are usually bigger and they don't have this tubular system. In terms of time, they take maybe 24 to 36 hours of continuously putting logs in and firing. And they take many, many square feet of fuel, while the rocket kiln, to reach this temperature, takes around maybe 5 to 6 buckets of wood that you can see in this image. And here is just a little spread over little examples of some of the kilns that we've built throughout this project that some of the CRUST people have done. And they are all different sizes and they are adapted to the place where they are built, the site, what type of material is there. Some kilns are smaller, others are larger, and the tube and the system, the firebox, is somehow also adapted to that. And here's just a little peek inside one of the firing chambers, and on the left side you can see some little test trays and some little pieces that has been glazed but still not fired, and on the right image it's kind of after firing and opening the kiln again. And some of these vessels you can go and have a closer look at after this talk, because they're all displayed in the exhibition here. And this firing particularly was to 1180 centigrade-ish, and like that's about 2150 Fahrenheit. Some of these have glazed, others just have the atmosphere of the kiln, or I don't know if you see in the middle, there's a sort of like a blue tray with a stripe, but on the right side of that, there's a white tray that has just kind of like a, I don't know what to call it, like a brown blob in it, but this is just from putting salt, like regular salt. And you see also that the vessel that is on the bottom floor has some grass and some organic material that has burnt away and created some interesting effects. And lastly, I would also like to mention a very important pillar of our project that I think both Linda and also Loriane touched on, which is about the community and the network that are all involved in these projects, and the importance of sharing our experience and our knowledge that come out of these experiments. I think it's really, really a big part of sustainability in general. You know, the skill sharing, the knowledge, and as Lisa Orr posted her plans over the kiln that she had been building in the US, and how we can continue working on that and receive, in dialogue with her, and it's really, really important. And not only have we connected with the Green Task Force network at NCICA, we also started an on-site project up at 3 Ecologies. I don't know if you know this place up at Saint-Anne-du-Lac, no? Right? Here in Quebec, where we still have a kiln up there, but it's just hidden under some sheets of, what do you call it? Tarp, yeah, hidden away during the winter. But also, I think we were very proud that in November last year, we were invited for an international symposium called Genjord. It kind of almost translates to upcycle or remade. It's a Danish word. And this symposium was a group of people who are researching different ways or different approaches to promote sustainable practices within the ceramics field. And we were able to present our work there at the Ceramics Museum in Denmark. And we had great conversations with both scientists and other makers and people just generally interested. And during the symposium, we were also firing one of our kilns so that we could have sort of a live interaction with the audience. Very much appreciated. And on that note, I'd like to hand the mic over to Teresa Dorey, who is an artist and MFA student, second year in ceramics and sculpture, and has also been working a lot with sustainable practices here at Concordia.
Thanks, Daniel. Thank you, everyone, for coming, to the organizers. And I just wanted to acknowledge that I'm really looking forward to seeing some of their presentations and hopefully connecting with you all. At the end of my presentation, I'll have some contact information, and we'd all really love if you would connect with us. So on that note, I would like to really just emphasize that there's no sustainability without collective effort and community. And I am just going to bring up some slides here. This image was just touching on what Daniel just mentioned when we were able to go to Denmark and build a kiln on a museum's property and fire it. And many of the people that came had all different types of interests, and it just goes to show, kind of similar to the symposium, about how one research in one area can support another. And so I'm discussing today the Sustainable Studios project, which I've had the honor to be very involved in since 2023. And it essentially is a catalyst for change within academic ecosystems and beyond. We are encouraging, through student-led research, workshops, and events, how to embrace sustainability. We're looking at how to highlight art and community and how those things intersect, and how this relates to environmental, social, and economic realms. So we're doing this by providing hands-on learning experiences, and our project aims to promote a culture within studio arts and the broader student body that considers environmental consciousness. Through meaningful actions, our project presents opportunities to enhance connections and promote interdepartmental exchange between undergraduate and graduate students. As an MFA student that is committed to meaningful art and sustainable practices, I hope that our project can empower fellow students to rethink their relationship with materials and studio practices, as well as encouraging connection and collaboration. While fostering community and raising environmental consideration, a highlight that I've personally found very special is to be able to work with people at our communities and together to be able to ensure that some of the changes that we're working on become long-term. And what I mean by that is how our projects can go from an idea to a workshop to learning collectively, and then taking actions from those workshops to see how we can impact that on a longer-term basis. So the most direct example that I could think of was that our project was able to save 22,000 liters of water in a year. And this is done through a very simple 3-bucket system with standing water. So as ceramicists, we use water quite a bit, and we need to wash our tools. So one of the most directive and efficient ways to reduce waste is to reduce our water consumption. And so by using 3 buckets with standing water instead of running water, we were able to reduce this consumption by 80%. So factors like this have helped us win the top environmental Forces AVENIR award last year. I think it's really important to also note that it was an environmental award and not an arts award. And I think this is important to note because it's very fascinating to think about how our research as ceramicists can become expanded to other interdisciplinary categories, and how we can think about the future of sustainability by working together. So as artists, perhaps we're not the first people that you think about when you think about sustainability, and maybe we're not the leaders that come to mind. However, artists are creative problem solvers. It's what we do every single day in our studios. And so by collaborating and having interdisciplinary exchanges, this is essential to think about how to devise creative solutions that help us navigate the climate crisis and how to support one another. Sustainable Studios is a place to support this. So by providing opportunities for students to formulate and share research, gain professional development, and offer learning, we're hoping to create supportive creative thinking and directly supporting this and building futures together. As I mentioned, we can't work on sustainability without supporting one another. So coming back to these group projects, we're thinking about how to offer students ways to get to know their peers and expand their communities. We intend to foster long-lasting relationships that will continue into their professional lives after graduation. These workshops we're also hoping to increase and improve student life. And to focus on accessibility, many of them are free of charge, well, all of them are free of charge, but they're also open to the public. So similar to today, when we're able to learn from all different kinds of departments and connect. And through these connections, and like the conference that we're at today, we're able to expand and think in new ways together. So Sustainable Studios is trying to prove that this idea of sustainability in art is not just a conceptual approach. And it's not just an elite neoliberal trend, but it's an intentional practice that with mindful actions can result in innovative, impactful works of art, but also building community. So by creating long-lasting connections with other departments and sharing tools, this framework of working together and sharing resources can be an ongoing annual offering from Sustainable Studios. I'm really pleased to say that we are expanding, and we've already been in touch with the sculpture department, and many other departments in studio arts have been involved as well. I'm also very pleased to say that we received a grant from the CCSL to improve student life. And again, the contact info is at the end, but please reach out to contact us. So Some of you can relate to sustainability, but at this point that word can become a buzzword, at least for me. So when I was preparing this workshop and how to break it down, I want to really think of the essence of the three main categories I mentioned earlier. So environmental, social, and economic. So environmental, as my colleagues Linda, Daniel, and Loriane have all touched on, our research is thinking about how to use local, recycled, and low energy materials. The oldest ceramic objects that we know of, meaning that were fired, it's very possible we were using clay before that, were made in the Paleolithic period, meaning we've dug and fired clay for at least 30,000 years. From art to vessels to the very buildings that shelter us through bricks. Before globalization and industrialization, the clay that ceramicists use were in close proximity. But nowadays, as mentioned, it's really hard to know where your materials come from or what you're using in the studio. So part of our initiative is not only educating on how to find this information out, but it's also giving those creative problem-solving skills to be able to give students the agency to figure that out on their own, and how to do that research. So for instance, using local clay and alternative firing methods like building a kiln in Denmark. I was laughing when Daniel mentioned this, a side note, but when we were talking about creative problem-solving, in Denmark, the bricks are a different size. So even all the practicing that we had done, we had to come up with solutions on the spot. So just coming back to sustainable studios, we've hosted workshops on water conservation, recycling, using natural materials such as wood ash or other garbage to replace ingredients that would otherwise be extracted from the earth in sometimes unethical ways. So we're also thinking about mindfulness. And moving on to the other realms of materials, I guess a question I want to leave on the environmental category is, in this late stage capitalism era, how can we use our knowledge of materials to critique and resist unethical extraction? And how can we create leaders for the future? So the second realm that I mentioned was the social aspect, and sustainability needs community. I think I've said it maybe too many times, but really emphasizing that here. Through this project, we share our research. We're sharing how to skill build, and we're expanding professional development, but really the emphasis is on community. There is little literature and protocols that are available or transferable to the reality of collective studios. And our project therefore serves as an exploratory laboratory to help build these ecological practices in ceramics, but also beyond, again, thinking about how to go beyond just a studio approach. So when we're thinking about social aspects with the community, we're always trying to be inclusive as possible, so offering these to students beyond the studio arts department. So one of my favorite things has been when other students from different departments that have never seen or worked with clay before, and they just wanted to become part of the community. That is truly the essence and community aspect that I think is really important. So I just wanted to also note that I personally am so thankful for everyone who has contributed to this project, who is currently in this project, and who I will also be able to continue to work with. There's no way that we can do this alone, and the ability to work together is really the essence of it. Ceramics takes time, as Linda touched on, and that research takes time. So being able to share research and share that access really makes us more effective, and I think this can go beyond just a ceramic studio as well. So the last one I touched on was economics, and to be completely transparent, we've been running this project on a shoestring budget, and this comes from care. People care, they're invested, they care about the future, they care about the environment. We all here care about the environment. I'm sure you all do too. You're here, you're taking the time, you're showing through investment of your time what you care about. So thinking about the complex and dynamic interactions between society and environment, that is the essence of my research, and recognizing that we as humans are not separate from nature, and I'm sure you all are thinking about this as well. So these social factors and the context that we're a part of reflect the environmental degradation and inequality. So the ways that we're treating our social structures and the ways that we practice impact our natural world. So if we can learn to take better care of one another and our relationships with one another, will also impact the earth. And not just thinking about how we take care of the earth, but with the neighbors, with communities. And so in terms of sustainability, I think it's imperative that what types of futures do we want to create? And I would like to just take the opportunity to acknowledge that the strike that is happening right now, and that the teaching assistants at Concordia and research assistants at Concordia are currently on strike, and that this type of project would not be possible without the community support. And I would also like to take a moment to thank CUFA, the faculty of teaching, the full-time faculty at Concordia, for supporting the strike. I think that working together in taking action is one of the most direct ways that we can help create better futures and stand up for what we believe in. And showing through investment of our time and energy what we care for, and that extends to sustainability directly. And an ongoing project is Sustainable Studios. So on that note, I'll go back to my contact information that I said I was going to drop. Please contact us. We are Instagram. We also have an email. There are some brochures, stickers, and other things that relate to the strike, if you'd like to know more about that. And with the last 15 minutes, we just really wanted to open it up to the floor and ask you all how you're doing, and if you have questions for us. I think it was Susan that asked that first question. Thank you for doing that. But about clay. But yeah, I truly thank you all for coming. And if anyone has any questions, please ask. Was it Susan? Was that who asked the question? I forgot the name of the person. No.
I'm so sorry. Just 1 second. Let me get you a microphone. You'll be our last question. It's just so that people online can hear, so Linda can hear you. Yeah.
So it's for Loriane. And for digging your clay, how far down do you like to go, or as far as you can? Because there's different colors.
Yeah, different colors, different compositions. I will be sincere with you, Susan, as I am with many of my students. Some of here will probably laugh here. But I'm a lazy maker. I'm a maker. I'm a craft person. I work a lot. It's labor intensive to reclaim, to dig clay and all. But I prefer to find nice spots than to really dig, deep in the ground. And regarding what we're discussing also, I think it's part of my own ethic. I think that each one of us, we have our own ethic, right? That's how we make a culture. So my own ethic is that what is up on the crust is more interesting than if I really dig. Regarding, it depends which type of use you want to make. I know you're a potter. If you would like to do as other potters that I could name now, you could use clay for making some glazes, basically using terracotta, faïence from Quebec, Jacques Caplin from Gaspésie, or Jacques Boulanger, sorry, from Caplin in Gaspésie, or Jacques Benoit here in Montreal, digging clay in Kamouraska. So they are using local clays. Local. When I mention these areas, it's not that local, but regarding our territory in Quebec province, it's quite local. And why they are using these clays? It's because of geological considerations. Even the clay, local clay made at Cial, it's made with schist. I don't know how to translate this term, schist. It's a type of shale, thank you. Teresa is quite bilingual. So shale from Gaspésie. So, and so voilà, you could have your own approach regarding digging clay. And if you want to make a collection with it, covering your current clay or making the shapes out of these clays, of course, you would probably need to dig more than me, you know? Okay, just a micro.
I'm actually so sorry. That is all the time we have for questions, but we're going to have some time actually afterwards to talk. It's just for those online. So thank you so much to
Okay.
our panel. And
Yeah,
thank you to
thank
everyone who
you.
had questions. Thank you so much. A round of applause.
Thank you.
Yeah, just wanted a little reminder that if any of you on Zoom also have some questions, you can always email us on the Sustainability Studio Concordia.concord. No, wait, what is the address?
Sustainable Studios Concordia at gmail.com, and we are on Instagram, Sustainable Studios Concordia. Thank you.
Okay, thank you again, everyone, for coming into Fourth Space today, for activating this conversation. We're going to go ahead, close up the live stream, but we'll keep the Zoom going. So for those of you who want to join us back here, I believe at 4:15 for the last event, we would love to see you there. For those of you in the space, we also want to see you too. So thanks again for joining us. And if you want to revisit or share this conversation, it is already available on our YouTube channel. All right, thanks so much and have a good one.